Keanu Reeves didn't expect anything strange that morning. The sun came through the windows of his home office. It was a quiet and calm place where he liked to drink coffee and do his work. He sat at his desk just like he always did, reading movie papers and notes and saving some fan letters to read later. His helper knew what to do. She kept away most of the letters but let the special ones through, the ones from people who felt moved by something Keanu had done. He only read those letters when he was in the right mood. Not because he had to, but because he cared. That morning there were the usual things. Some letters from studios, a padded envelope with a movie script, and thank you cards from charities. But there was also one strange envelope. It had no logos, no stamp from a post office. Just a plain white envelope with Keanu Reeves written on it in neat, blocky letters. No return address. No name of the person who sent it. Keanu looked at it for a moment. The writing was neat and slow, not rushed or messy. That made him curious. He gently opened the envelope. Inside there were three things. A copy of a birth certificate. That's a paper that says when and where a baby was born. This one was from California. It didn't say who the father was. The mom's name was Dina Holloway. The child's name was Jaden Elijah Reeves. He was born on February 7, 1978. A small photo, a bit old and faded. It showed a boy about 6 years old sitting on a sidewalk. His jeans were a little torn and he had his arms resting on his knees. He wasn't smiling. He looked serious, like he had seen too much for someone his age. A note written by hand on lined paper. The writing was neat, just like the writing on the envelope. It said, "Mr. Reeves, my name is Elaine Morrison. I used to work as a social worker in San Bernardino County for over 30 years. I've wanted to send this letter for more than 20 years, and now I finally have. Please read it with an open heart. Back in the late 1970s, I worked with a boy named Jaden. His mom, Dina, died from drugs when he was 6. Before she passed, she told us the father's name, Thomas Reeves. We tried to find Thomas but couldn't. He had no address and nothing legal connecting him to Jaden. So Jaden went into foster care. He lived in different homes and then on the streets. Now he's in prison. He doesn't know about you. He doesn't even know your name. But I've followed your life, Mr. Reeves. And I couldn't keep this a secret anymore. You deserve to know. And so does he. Do whatever you feel is right. Elaine, ***. Keanu kept looking at the name, Jaden Reeves. His heart didn't beat faster, it just sank. He didn't feel shocked because deep down he kind of believed it already. He stared at the photo again. That boy in the picture, he looked a little like Keanu. His eyes looked strong but also sad. They were the eyes of someone who had to survive. Keanu rubbed his face and leaned back in his chair. He tried to understand all the big feelings inside him. This wasn't like silly stories in magazines. This wasn't fake. It was real. There was a name, a photo, and a birth certificate. And a real man now in prison who might be his brother. He read the note again more slowly. Elaine, the social worker, didn't write it to be dramatic. She didn't ask for money or tell Keanu what to do. She just told him the truth. Now Keanu had to figure out what to do with that truth. His father, Thomas Reeves, had been a lot of things. Smart but selfish, kind sometimes but also mean. Keanu had already made peace with who his father was. Or so he thought. But this letter opened up old feelings again. Jaden wasn't just a secret son raised by someone else. Jaden had been left all alone. Forgotten. Not by just one person but by many. Keanu felt angry, but more than that he felt sad. He picked up his phone without thinking but didn't know who to call. This wasn't a problem for his manager or a lawyer. This was something deep. Something that came from the heart. He walked to the window and looked out at his garden. Everything outside was peaceful. But inside, Keanu's heart wasn't peaceful at all. He thought about his sister Kim. How they grew up moving from place to place, living in motels, taking long bus rides. It had been hard, but they had each other. They weren't alone. Jaden had been alone. Keanu turned over the photo again. On the back, there was nothing but a tiny blue stamp. Child Services Archive. The picture was curling at the edges like time had tried to make it disappear. But now it was here. In Keanu's hands. A boy's face asking to be seen. He gently folded the paper, the photo, and the birth certificate. He put them back in the envelope and slid it into his desk drawer. He sat quietly for a long time just thinking. That night, Keanu couldn't sleep. He lay in bed in the dark. His body was still, but his mind was racing. He kept thinking about the boy in the picture. About those eyes. The serious face. The way he looked so alone. Keanu had spent years trying to understand why his father left. He had learned to live with that pain. But Jaden had never even had the chance to ask why. No one told him. No one helped him understand. He was just left. Keanu thought about how many kids go through life like that, slipping through the cracks, feeling invisible. He had met people like that over the years, at shelters during movie shoots on the streets. People with stories that were too heavy to carry alone. But Jaden wasn't just someone he met. He was family. His dad's blood. His brother. The next morning, before the sun even came up, Keanu was already at his desk. He opened the drawer, took out the envelope, and laid everything on the desk again. He didn't know what the right thing to do was. But he knew he couldn't do anything. He picked up his phone and typed into the search bar, California Department of Corrections inmate search. He typed in the name, Keanu Reeves. In just 5 seconds, a name popped up, Jaden Elijah Reeves. Inmate number AE10594. He was at a prison called the California Correctional Institution in a place called Tehachapi. He had been in prison for 11 years. He was sent there for robbery, stealing, and hurting someone. He had to stay for 16 years. Keanu looked at the photo of Jaden as a grown man. He was thinner now. His hair was short. His face looked tired and a little sad. His shoulders were slumped like he was carrying something very heavy. But the eyes, they were the same as the boy in the photo. Sharp, sad, and guarded. Keanu's heart hurt. He closed the page and leaned back in his chair. It was real. This was real. This wasn't just a long-lost brother in some faraway place. This was his brother. Locked in a prison. Forgotten. Left behind by a world that never really gave him a chance. Keanu couldn't stop thinking about what Jaden's life must have been like between that old photo and now. Moving between group homes. Maybe getting hurt. Maybe I'm going hungry. Sleeping in places that weren't safe. And then something went wrong. He stole something. He got arrested. And now he was in prison. Keanu leaned forward and typed again. This time he searched. Private investigator, Los Angeles, family matters, discreet. He needed answers. Real ones. He needed to know who Jaden was. And what he could do next. In just a few minutes he had 3 names to choose from. He picked the one with the simplest website. There were no pictures, no big titles, just one page with a phone number on it. The name was Lang & Associates. At the top it just said, "How can we help you?" At first, Keanu didn't say who he really was. He asked if the person could help with things like checking prison records, finding family connections, and looking at foster care files. The voice on the phone sounded calm and smart. They said, "Yes, we've done this kind of work many times." Keanu gave his real name only after a special paper was signed to keep everything private. Then the search began. The next morning, the investigator, an older lady named Joan Lang, had already started looking into things. Joan worked quietly and carefully. She never asked why a famous actor like Keanu Reeves wanted to know about a man in prison. She knew how to keep things secret. She also knew how to move fast even when people spoke calmly. Joan didn't need the full story. She only needed the facts. And Keanu liked that. 2 days later, Joan called back. "Everything is real, Mr. Reeves," she said. Jaden had been born in Riverside County. His birth certificate was real. His mom, Dina Holloway, had said the dad was Thomas Reeves, but Thomas never answered any court letters and disappeared before they could do a DNA test. Dina died 6 months later from a drug overdose. Jaden was only 6 years old when it happened. Since he had no family, he went into foster care. After that, things were sad. Jaden was moved from one foster home to another. The longest he stayed in one place was 6 months. He had problems at school. He stole things, got into fights, and skipped school. He left school before he reached 9th grade. Then he started getting in trouble with the police. First, for living on the streets and stealing small things. Then, for hurting someone during a robbery when he was 35 years old. He used a baseball bat. No one was hurt badly, but it was still serious. Because of his past and the laws at the time, he was given a long prison sentence. He hadn't had one single visitor in over 7 years. Joan found one more thing, a file from when Jaden first entered prison. It had a photo that was more recent than the one Keanu had seen online. Keanu opened it slowly. The eyes were the same. It was Jaden. But now there was something different. His eyes looked like he had given up. Like he didn't expect anything good anymore. Like he knew no one was coming. Keanu just sat there with the papers. He didn't move for almost 20 minutes. A part of him had hoped this story wouldn't be true. That it was all a mistake. But it wasn't. It was all real. Elaine had given him something special. It hurt, but it was honest. Now, what should he do? He wasn't a hero. He couldn't just walk into a prison and fix a life with a smile. But how could he just walk away? He remembered all the letters he had gotten over the years, people thanking him for acting, for being kind, for being there when they were sad. Now, there was someone whose sadness was bigger than all of that. And Keanu was the only one who knew. That night, Keanu didn't sleep much. He walked around his house with no shoes, quiet as the hours went by. The city outside was still noisy, but his house was silent. He kept thinking, what kind of person is Jaden now? Is he angry? Is he mean? Did prison change him too much? Or is there still something good inside, something that hasn't been broken? He didn't know. But that question wouldn't leave his heart. By the time the sun came up, Keanu was sitting at the same desk, looking at the same photo. But now he had made a choice. Not because he had to. Not because he felt bad. Because something deep inside told him to. Keanu picked up a notepad and started writing a list. Not for news reporters. Not for lawyers. Just for himself. No press. No big announcements. No pretending. Just one man going to visit another. He didn't want Jaden to meet Keanu Reeves, the movie star. He wanted him to meet a person. Someone who wasn't there to judge or change anything, just to listen. Later that morning, he called Joan Lang again. He asked, "Is there any way I can visit Jaden using a different name? Maybe through a program like a volunteer group?" "I'll find a way," Joan said right away. By the end of the day, she did. There was a group called Pathlight Visitation Ministry. They were going to the prison soon. They helped prisoners by talking with them, not with long speeches but just with kindness and listening. It was perfect. No cameras. No one knew who Keanu was. Just two people meeting. Keanu took a deep breath and let it out slowly. He didn't know what would happen next. It wasn't going to be easy. Or neat. But it would be real. And that was enough. The prison was big and gray. It had tall fences, towers, and big buildings. It looked more like a forgotten army base than a place to help people. Keanu sat quietly in a plain rental car. He looked out the window. It was early morning. Fog moved around the sharp wire at the top of the fences. The sun had just started rising. He saw guards walking, dogs barking far away, and heard a deep hum in the air. It sounded like machines always running. When he stepped out of the car and heard the loud clank of a metal gate, he felt it. This place was made to trap pain, not help it. Going inside was slow and uncomfortable. Keanu used the name David Collins just like Joan had arranged. The Pathlight group let him visit quietly with no attention. They only visited non-violent prisoners and believed in helping them by simply being kind. At the gate, a guard checked his fake ID and made sure he was on the list. Another guard scanned him for metal. He had to take off his shoes, his watch, and even a ring he carried, his dad's ring. Everything was locked away and he was given a visitor badge on a string. He went through 4 locked doors. Each one felt colder than the last. By the time he got to the visitor area, he felt a heavy weight in his chest. The room was simple. Hard plastic chairs, a table with a serious-looking officer, and a big sign with rules. No touching. No shouting. No making promises. Keanu sat on a bench. He read the rules while he waited. Then a voice called, "David Collins." A guard waved him over. Keanu followed. The hallway echoed with every step. Big doors opened and slammed shut behind him. The lights buzzed. The floor was cold and shiny. Everything felt very far from the outside world. But it wasn't the sounds that made him sad. It was the quiet between the sounds. They stopped in front of a door marked Room C. "You'll sit across from the inmate. No glass between you, but we're watching," the guard said. "No funny stuff, okay?" Keanu nodded. The door opened. He stepped inside. It was a plain room with 2 metal chairs and a little table stuck to the floor. Then the door on the other side creaked open. Jaden walked in. He walked like someone who had been hurt before. Like someone who expected this visit to end badly like all the rest. His hands weren't tied. This part of the prison was for people who weren't dangerous. But his stiff arms showed that he had learned to always be careful. He was thinner than the photo. His clothes looked too big. There was a little scar above his eyebrow. But his eyes, those same dark eyes, were sharp. They had seen a lot. He looked right at Keanu, trying to understand who he was. Keanu stood up, then sat back down. The officer closed the door behind Jaden. Now it was just the two of them sitting under a flickering light. Behind the wall of glass, a staff member watched silently with a pen and paper. Jaden walked to the table and sat across from Keanu. He looked nervous. His knee bounced under the table. It was very quiet. Keanu gave a small, kind nod. "Thanks for meeting me." Jaden didn't answer. He looked at Keanu. First at his clothes, then at his hands, then at his face. He stared longer than most people would. "You a priest or something?" Jaden asked. His voice was rough and dry, like someone who hadn't talked much in a long time. "No," Keanu said gently. "Just here to talk." Jaden gave a little smile, but not a happy one. You one of those people who wants to help? Or are you writing a book? Keanu smiled a little, but his eyes looked serious. Neither. Jaden leaned back, his arms crossed. So why are you here? Keanu paused. He had practiced this answer a lot, but now nothing he practiced came out. Instead, he told the truth. I'm here because I wanted to meet you. The words hung in the air. No plan. No promise. Just honest truth. Jaden squinted a little, looking confused but also curious. You picked me from a list or something? He asked. Keanu shook his head. No list. Jaden tilted his head. Then what? Did you get bored one day and think, hey, let's go visit someone in jail? Keanu didn't move. I read something about you, he said, and I thought maybe it was time someone came to see you without needing a reason. There was a long, quiet moment. Then Jaden leaned forward and put both elbows on the cold metal table. Well, you've got an hour, he said. Let's not waste it. Keanu gave a small nod and sat down. He didn't say anything yet. Not because he felt awkward, but because he wanted to give Jaden time. Keanu had learned that if you talk too fast, people might close up. He wanted Jaden to take the first step. Jaden tapped the edge of the table with his thumb. So, what do people like you want to hear? A sad prison story? A tale about how I changed? I don't want anything, Keanu said gently. I just want to hear your story. Whatever it is. Jaden narrowed his eyes. You know how many people say that and then never come back? Keanu looked him in the eyes. I'm not like most people. For the first time, Jaden paused. Not because he believed Keanu, but because maybe he kind of did. He leaned back a little slower this time. His shoulders were still tight, but he didn't seem as angry anymore. You got a name? Jaden finally asked. Keanu paused. David. Jaden looked at him carefully. Last name? Keanu smiled a little. Let's just go with David for now. Jaden gave a short laugh. Mysterious. Keanu shrugged. I'm not here to impress you. Just here. That surprised Jaden more than any compliment would have. He looked at Keanu again like he was trying to find what the trick was. But there wasn't one. No notebook, no clipboard, no fake smile. Just someone being there. For the next 20 minutes, they sat at the table. Jaden talked a little. Keanu mostly listened. They talked about Jaden's childhood, at least what he could remember, about books he liked and how bad the food was in jail. Nothing big, nothing dramatic. But it was real. And for Keanu Reeves, that meant something. Keanu came back the next week. Same walk, same loud metal doors slamming shut behind him. He didn't expect much. Their last talk had ended in a kind of open way, but that didn't always mean anything in a place like this. Still, Jaden's words, let's not waste it, stuck with Keanu. He sat at the same table wearing the same plain clothes. The name David Collins was still on his shirt. He chose the same seat on purpose, hoping it would help Jaden feel more okay. The door opened again. Jaden walked in, this time with a little less worry in his steps. He still looked serious, but he gave Keanu a short nod as he sat down. No, hello, no small talk. Just, you came back. Keanu nodded. I said I would. Jaden leaned back in his chair. Most people don't. I'm not most people. A small smile played on Jaden's lips. Yeah, I'm starting to believe that. They sat in silence for a bit. It didn't feel heavy. It felt careful, like two people trying to build a bridge without knowing how. Then Jaden spoke. You wanted my story. I don't know if it's worth telling, but I'll tell you the part no one else wanted to hear. Keanu nodded kindly. I'm listening. Jaden looked at the table, then let out a breath. 15 homes. That's how many I lived in before I turned 18. I was passed around foster care. Some places were okay, some were like battlefields. You learn not to get too comfy, not to care, not to expect your toothbrush to be in the same place the next day. He looked up. Ever try doing math homework while a drunk foster dad yells at your caseworker in the next room? Keanu didn't answer. You didn't have to. I dropped out at 14, Jaden said. Not because school was hard. Life was hard. I got tired of pretending to care about essays when I didn't even know where I'd sleep at night. His voice wasn't angry. It was quiet, like he was reading from a book called How to Get Through Being Unwanted. I worked jobs after that, Jaden went on, shifting in his seat. Washing dishes, stacking shelves, construction jobs that paid in cash. They never lasted long. I didn't have a phone or a car. I didn't even have a real address. Every time I filled out a form, it reminded me I didn't belong. Keanu sat still, listening hard. He could feel the weight in Jaden's words, not just the pain but the tiredness of telling a story no one cared about before. I lived out of a car for a year, Jaden continued. Well, a car. It wasn't even mine. Some beat-up old Toyota I bought for $200. No papers. No plates. I parked behind a grocery store most nights. I just needed a place to close my eyes without watching my back. He gave a dry laugh. People talk about freedom like it's a fun trip or something. For me, it was 4 flat tires and an engine that overheated every day. But at least no one could throw me out of it. Keanu felt his throat tighten, but he stayed calm. He didn't want Jaden to mistake care for pity. Jaden kept going. Then I started hanging out with some guys who did small-time stuff. Stealing electronics, pawn shop tricks. Just trying to survive. When you haven't eaten in 2 days, you don't think about if it's right or wrong. He looked straight at Keanu. Yeah, I stole. I lied. I took things that weren't mine. I'm not proud. But I wasn't trying to hurt people. I just didn't know what else to do. They were quiet for a while. I was always waiting for someone to notice me, Jaden said. Not save me. Please do not modify it. Just see me. Keanu's heart ached. Those words were so simple but so real. He knew that feeling too, not the same way but deep inside. Feeling unseen isn't about being invisible. It's about thinking the world wouldn't even notice if you were gone. Keanu leaned forward a little, putting his elbows on the cold table. He didn't speak right away. He didn't have to. Jaden let out a slow breath, like telling his story had taken all his energy. The robbery wasn't supposed to happen like it did, he said softly. We were just going to scare the guy. In and out. I didn't even have a real weapon, just a bat. But one of the others brought a knife without telling me. Things went bad fast. The clerk hit the alarm. My guy panicked and pushed him. We ran. But I got caught. And with my record, that was it. Done. He looked down at his hands. I wasn't innocent. But I didn't hurt anyone. I just didn't stop. His voice wasn't full of self-pity, just tired. The judge called me a danger to the public and gave me 16 years, he said. Said maybe prison would teach me what the world didn't. Keanu's heart hurt again. But he stayed quiet. People either left me or used me, Jaden whispered. That's all I ever knew. But you showed up. I don't get it. I still don't. Keanu leaned in, voice soft. You said no one ever saw you. Jaden blinked slowly. I see you, Keanu said. That's why I came back. For the first time, Jaden didn't look away. He didn't smile or nod. He just looked at Keanu like he wasn't sure whether to believe him or run away, but he didn't run. And that meant something. Maybe for now that was enough. Keanu didn't leave right away. After the visit ended and Jaden was taken back through the steel door, Keanu sat in the empty room for a few minutes. He stared at the table. The quiet they once shared now felt heavy. That hour felt like it lasted forever and was gone too fast. But something had changed. Jaden had opened up a little. Keanu finally stood, gave back his visitor badge and walked out the same way he came in. Each buzz and metal door slam sounded louder, but this time they felt like something important. Reminders of how one choice can change everything. One life inside. One life outside. Both changed forever by choices made long ago. Outside, Keanu didn't go to his car right away. He walked. The prison fence stretched out along the dry ground. The wind was cold, but he didn't pull up his jacket. He liked the cold. It helped him feel real. His mind was busy. He saw Thomas's face, not the smiling man from old pictures, but the emptiness he left behind. Thomas had shown up just enough to leave a scar, but never stayed. No visits. No calls. No guilt. Just gone. Keanu clenched his jaw. His fists were tight in his pockets. The sadness inside him was all mixed up. Part anger, part hurt, part confusion at how one person could do so much damage by just disappearing. But even deeper than that was something else. Something he understood. Keanu had slept in motels. He had eaten soup from cans on cold floors while his mom worked long hours and his sister Kim fought to stay alive. He knew what it felt like to drift around without an anchor. He knew what it felt like to be invisible. He and Jaden grew up in different worlds, but both knew how it felt to be lost. Later that night, back at his small rental house, Keanu sat outside on the wooden porch. He held a warm mug of tea but didn't drink it. The sun was going down, making long shadows. He could hear the wind in the trees and birds getting ready to sleep. Usually this time of day helped him feel calm. But today the silence felt too big. He looked at the envelope in his hands, the one that started it all. Elaine's letter. A photo of a 6-year-old boy sitting on a sidewalk. A boy with eyes that looked too old for his face. That photo didn't haunt him. It followed him. After a while, Keanu picked up his phone. He found a number he hadn't called in a long time. Sandra. She had taken care of Thomas in his last days. She had seen the real man he became. She knew things that never got written in the newspaper. She had seen him feel guilty when he thought no one was watching. The phone rang 3 times. Then her voice came. "Keanu?" "Yeah," he said. "Hey, sorry to call out of the blue." No, it's good to hear from you. Is everything okay?" He waited a little, then said quietly, "I found out something about Thomas." There was a long silence. "I'm listening," she said. So he told her everything. The letter, the boy, the man in prison, the eyes that looked like their dad's, and how hard it was to look at someone who had every reason to feel forgotten. When he finished, Sandra let out a soft sigh. "That sounds really heavy." "It is," he said. "And you met him already?" "Yeah, twice now." There was another pause. Then Sandra said something that made Keanu freeze. "You don't owe him anything, but you might be the only one who can give him something he's never had." Keanu closed his eyes and let her words stay in his heart. Not forgiveness. No answers. Not even justice. Presence. That's what Jaden had missed all his life. Someone who stayed. He thanked Sandra and hung up. Her voice stayed in his mind. He sat still for a long time watching the sun go down. Then, quietly, he picked up his laptop and typed in the search bar, "Keanu Reeves prison interview." He wanted to know more. One video showed up. It was shaky and old, like it was filmed with an old camera. But it was him, Jaden. Jaden sat on a folding chair. A dim light lit half his face. A few other prisoners sat around him in a small circle. This wasn't a fancy interview. It was a talk group like in a rehab program. The date showed it was from 2 years ago. Keanu pressed play. The person in charge asked, "When did you stop believing things could get better?" Jaden didn't answer right away. The camera showed his face. He looked down, rubbed his hands together, then looked up. "When I was 16, he said, "I got sent to a new foster home. They gave me a mattress on the floor and a list of chores. That first night, no one even told me their names. I ate cold spaghetti from a can and went to sleep listening to some man yelling at the TV in the next room. I remember thinking, this is what the rest of my life will be." He shrugged. "Turns out I was right." Keanu leaned closer to the screen, watching not just what Jaden said but how he said it. His voice was calm and honest. Too tired to be angry. But behind the tired sound was something else. He wasn't blaming anyone. He wasn't making excuses. He was just telling the truth. A man who had to accept his story before anyone else would. When the video ended, Keanu sat in silence. He didn't know what would happen next time they met, or what Jaden would say. But now he understood something new. Jaden wasn't broken. He was unfinished. And for the first time in a long time, Keanu felt calm inside. He was going back. Keanu returned to the prison 1 week later. He moved through the security checks quietly and humbly, just like he did everything. He nodded at the guards, looked down, and didn't explain why he was there. He wasn't a star here. He wasn't there to be thanked. He was just a man trying to understand another. But this time, something had changed inside him. The last visit had opened a door. Not just for Jaden, but for Keanu too. A door to old memories. To feelings that hurt too much before. Feelings he had pushed away because life needed him to be strong. Now, face to face with someone who had felt a different kind of being left behind, Keanu wanted to return. He needed to. He walked into visitation room C. Jaden was already there. He wasn't sitting with a strong pose. He wasn't staring in a mean way. He was just sitting, calm, quiet, still. Keanu sat down across from him. For a moment they just looked at each other. Not angry. Not judging. Just two men really seeing each other for the first time. "You came back," Jaden said. Not like a question. More like a small test. Keanu nodded. "Told you I would." Jaden smiled a little. "Most people don't." "I'm not most people," Keanu replied. Jaden gave a tiny laugh and leaned back. "Yeah, I'm starting to believe that." There was a pause. It felt normal, not awkward. "You know," Jaden said, "I've been trying to figure out what your angle is." Keanu looked into his eyes. "And what did you think?" "I don't know yet. But you're not here for pity. And you're not writing a book." "Right on both," Keanu said. "So what are you here for?" Keanu didn't rush. "I guess. I'm here to learn who you are." Jaden nodded slowly. "Well, that's new." A moment passed. Then Keanu asked, "What do you like?" Jaden frowned. "Like what?" "Food." "No," Keanu said with a small smile. "Books, music, movies, whatever." That surprised Jaden. Nobody had asked him that in years. Maybe never. He leaned back and folded his arms, not sure if it was a joke. But after a moment he answered, I used to be into music, Jaden said. Back before life got messy. Had an old Walkman in one group home. Found a cassette, Pink Floyd's Wish You Were Here. Played it until the tape broke. Keanu smiled softly. That's a good one. Yeah. Something about it felt like, it got me. Jaden looked down like he was shy for being honest. Movies? Keanu asked gently. Jaden shrugged. Didn't see many. Not in theaters anyway. But once, a foster parent rented Cool Hand Luke. That stuck with me. A guy who wouldn't give up no matter how hard they tried to break him. Keanu nodded. He saw the meaning. And books? Jaden said, tapping the table with one finger. Read whatever I could find. Like Steinbeck's Of Mice and Men. Something about being thrown away but still loyal. You know. Keanu swallowed. He hadn't expected this. The depth. The care. Jaden wasn't just hurt. He had learned to live with pain without breaking. Have you ever tried writing? Keanu asked. Jaden paused, then nodded shyly. In juvie they made us write journals. I didn't stop. Still write sometimes. What do you write about? Memories. Regrets. Stuff I wish I could say to people who aren't here anymore. There was a long pause. Not awkward. Just real. Then Jaden said something that hit Keanu like a hard truth. People always expected me to be a monster. So I just acted like one. Keanu looked at him, his eyes full of understanding. What if you could play a different role now? He asked softly. Jaden gave a short, tired laugh. Too late for that. Keanu's voice stayed calm. It's never too late. Jaden didn't answer. But he didn't argue either. The room was quiet again. Keanu watched Jaden's hands. His fingers twitched a little. Not nervous. It was something inside him, a battle between not believing and a small tiny hope. I don't even know who I'd be, Jaden said, if I wasn't this. Keanu didn't answer right away. He leaned forward, speaking gently. You'd be someone who made it, who survived even when the world gave him nothing. Jaden shook his head slowly. You don't know half the things I've done. No, Keanu said. But I know you're sitting here. And that takes more strength than most people will ever find. That landed gently, but with truth. Jaden looked away, staring at the ceiling. Sometimes I think I was born in the wrong place. To the wrong people. With no chance. Keanu nodded. I used to think that too. But then I learned I wasn't just born into pain. I was born into choice. I couldn't change the past. But I could decide what happens next. Jaden didn't reply. But his silence was softer now. Like something inside him had relaxed even just a little. A guard behind the glass tapped his watch. Their time was almost up. Keanu stood slowly. I'll see you again soon. Jaden didn't stop him or laugh. He just looked up and said, yeah. As Keanu walked through the door, he didn't look back. He didn't have to. For the first time, he felt like he left something behind that might grow. Keanu stared at the ceiling fan in his bedroom. It spun slowly. It was almost 2 o'clock in the morning, but he couldn't sleep. Not tonight. Not with the truth pressing so hard in his chest. It felt like a heavy stone. He had tried to explain it to himself. He told himself he needed to understand Jaden first. That trust had to come before truth. That saying his name, Keanu Reeves, too soon would make everything harder. But none of those reasons felt right anymore. Jaden had opened up. Not fully, but enough. Enough for Keanu to see the real man behind the hurt. A man who had been left behind. A survivor who had every reason to push people away. And Keanu had responded by hiding. Now that felt like a lie. By sunrise he made his choice. He called the prison office and gave his real name. Keanu Reeves. I'd like to schedule a personal visit with inmate Jaden Elijah Reeves. Not as a volunteer. Just like myself. There was a pause on the phone. Yes, sir. We'll arrange that. You'll have a private room. On the day of the visit, Keanu dressed simply. A gray button-up shirt. Jeans. Black boots. No sunglasses. No hat. Nothing to hide who he was. As he walked through the gates, the staff didn't say much. Some whispered. Some nodded. A few just stared. He was used to it. But today it felt uncomfortable. He didn't want fans. He didn't want praise. He just wanted truth. He passed through all the checks. This time no hiding. No fake names. They sent him to room D. It was smaller. The windows were frosted. The door locked for privacy. Inside he placed a big yellow envelope on the table. It had everything. Elaine's letter, the birth certificate, and a photo of Jaden sitting on a curb at age 6. Keanu sat down and waited. Every second felt slow. A buzzer sounded. The door opened. Jaden walked in. His eyes scanned the room carefully like always. But when he saw who was waiting, he froze. His whole body stopped. For a second, Jaden didn't move. He stood in the doorway like someone who just saw a room full of ghosts. His shoulders, which were usually stiff and tight, now hung low and loose. His eyes moved quickly around the room, like they were trying to understand what was happening. Then he saw Keanu. His eyes stopped. "You're," he started to say but stopped. His voice cracked. "You're him." Keanu stood up slowly and gave him space. "Yes." Jaden didn't sit down. He just stood there, blinking with his mouth open a little, trying to figure everything out in his head. "You lied to me," he said in a quiet, shaky voice. "All that time you lied." "I didn't lie," Keanu said softly. "I didn't tell you everything. That's different. But I know it still hurts." Jaden stepped back. "So what? You just came into my life pretending? Like an actor? Was this all fake? Just for some movie or role?" "No," Keanu said calmly. "It wasn't fake. It was real. It still is." Jaden made his hands into fists. Not because he was angry, but because he was trying hard not to cry. "You sat with me for weeks," Jaden said. "You acted like someone else. You let me talk. You let me open my heart." "I didn't want my past to get in the way," Keanu said. His voice was calm and honest. "I didn't want you to talk to a name or a famous person. I wanted you to talk to me. Just me." Jaden shook his head and gave a sad, bitter laugh. "That's funny. You think just showing up makes everything okay? You think being rich and famous means you get to hear my life like it's a movie?" Keanu didn't say anything. He didn't move. He didn't fight back. He just slowly picked up an envelope from the table and pushed it toward Jaden. Jaden looked at the envelope like it might hurt him. "What's that?" he asked. "It's proof," Keanu said. Jaden didn't touch it. Keanu stood up, stepped away from the table, and stayed quiet. He didn't try to explain more. He had said what he wanted to say. Then, without saying another word, he turned and walked out. The door closed quietly behind Keanu and the room became still. Jaden stood there, not moving. The envelope was still on the table in front of him. He didn't sit. He didn't speak. His heart was full of feelings he couldn't explain. He looked at the envelope like it might explode. He was scared to open it. Scared it would tell him something he didn't want to believe. Slowly, he pulled out a chair and sat down. He opened the envelope. He took out the papers one at a time. First, there was a letter from Elaine. Her handwriting was neat and familiar. She had written it years ago when Jaden moved to a different place. He remembered her now. Then came a birth certificate. He looked at the names, the dates, his mother's name, and then the blank space where the father's name should be. Then he saw a photo. It hit him hard. The boy in the photo was sitting on a sidewalk, hugging his knees. He looked too thin, too tired, too much like Jaden. He remembered that day. A social worker had taken the photo with a cheap camera. She said it was for his file. But Jaden had secretly hoped someone might see it and come find him. No one ever did. Not until now. His throat felt tight. His hands shook. It was true. All of it. The man who had come to see him again and again wasn't just anyone. He was his brother. Jaden leaned back in the chair and stared at the wall. He felt tricked. He felt like someone had taken off all his armor. But under all that pain and anger, there was something else. A small crack in the wall he had built around his heart. Because someone had come. Someone had stayed. And even if he wasn't ready to forgive, he couldn't pretend it didn't matter. The silence after that day didn't surprise Keanu. After he left the prison, leaving behind the envelope, the truth, and everything he had said, he didn't know what would happen next. Maybe a call. Maybe a letter. Maybe nothing. What he got was silence. Nothing. He didn't go back to visit. Not because he didn't want to, but because he knew it might make things worse. Jaden needed time. He needed space. The truth had landed like a big bomb. Now the pieces were falling. So Keanu waited. And while he waited, he wrote. He didn't write emails or typed letters. He used a pen and a notebook. Real letters. With black ink and smudges from his hand. The first letter was short and honest. A few paragraphs. Jaden, I understand. I know you're angry or confused. Maybe both. I didn't want to hurt you. I thought I was doing the right thing by showing up as just a man, not as someone famous. But you deserve the full truth. I'm sorry. I'm not writing to explain. I'm writing because I'm still here. He signed it Keanu. Then he wrote another letter. This one was longer. He told a story about almost losing a movie role because he didn't have money for gas. About sleeping in a car for 2 weeks in Vancouver. About eating noodles and wondering if life would ever get better. The third letter was even harder. He wrote about Kim. About holding her hand while she had cancer. Reading to her while her body hurt from treatments. Watching her slowly fade away. He said he hadn't shared that story with many people, but he wanted Jaden to know it. Silence doesn't mean I'm gone, he wrote. At night it became a special habit. He'd sit by the window or on the patio, letting the house grow quiet. Then he'd write. Not as an actor. Not as someone trying to impress. Just as a brother. One night he wrote about Jennifer. How they met. How she laughed when he tried to cook. How she always left the porch light on for him. And about their baby daughter, Ava, who was born still and never got to live. He didn't try to make it sound beautiful. He just told it like it was. I don't have all the answers, he wrote. Some days I don't even believe in anything. But I've learned the worst thing isn't pain. It's pretending you don't feel it. So I'm not pretending with you. Another letter came later. This one had a memory from when Keanu was 16. He had a fight with his father and rode his motorcycle along the coast. He stopped by a cliff, looked out at the ocean, and screamed into the wind. He felt lost, like a boy with no home. He added a photo to that letter. Him and Kim at the beach. The wind was blowing her scarf and they were laughing. On the back he wrote, "This is who I was before the world knew my name." He sent the letters one by one. No pressure. No expectations. Just gifts from his heart. Still no reply. But the mail clerk said the letters were not sent back. They were accepted. Read. Jaden was listening. And that made the silence easier to carry. Weeks passed. Still no response. But something changed in Keanu's heart. The silence didn't feel empty anymore. It felt like soil, dark and full of chances to grow. Because silence doesn't always mean, go away. Sometimes it means someone is thinking. Some nights, Keanu read copies of the letters he had sent. He wondered which ones Jaden read more than once. Which words stayed in his mind. Keanu didn't need thanks. He just wanted a bond. One day, while drinking coffee in his kitchen, Joan Lang called. She talked to someone at the prison. Carefully, with no pressure. Yes, Jaden had received the letters. Keanu asked, did he read them? Joan said, he reads them. Over and over. Keanu closed his eyes. That was enough. The next day he wrote again. The shortest letter yet. No matter how long it takes, I'll be here. Brother or stranger. Either way, I see you. He didn't sign his name this time. He didn't need to. The ink wasn't perfect. The paper was smudged. He folded it gently and walked it to the mailbox himself. As the letter slid inside, Keanu let out a breath, not of relief but of letting go. Because sometimes the best way to love someone is to wait. Then one day a letter came back. The envelope was thin. No return address. The handwriting was messy. It didn't look like Elaine's. It didn't look like a prison. It didn't look like Keanu's. He knew who it was from before opening it. His heart jumped as he opened it carefully. Inside was a small piece of paper. Just 12 words. Still don't trust you, but I'm listening. Jaden. Keanu sat back in his chair. The words felt louder than anything. It wasn't forgiveness. It wasn't a hug. But it was something even more rare. A door opening. Just wide enough to step through. He read it again, folded it, and set it down. Then he picked up his pen. You have every reason not to trust me, he wrote. But thank you for reading. For saying something that took more courage than you think. You want to know the truth about Thomas. I don't know how much you've been told. But I'll tell you everything. He was smart, funny, and wild. He made people believe in him. But he didn't stay. He ran from everything. From people. From pain. He showed up in my life just enough to mess it up. Then he disappeared again. I spent years trying to make him proud. But he never stayed long enough. So I gave up. The hole he left didn't go away. I just stopped pretending it didn't hurt. I don't know what kind of man he would have been to you. But if he never comes around, that says everything. He signed it, K. 4 days later, Jaden wrote back. Appreciate the honesty. Makes me feel less crazy. Have you ever asked him why he left you? Or did you just think it was your fault too? Keanu stared at those words. Then picked up his pen. This time the answer came slowly. He rewrote it again and again in his head. Then he began. Yeah, he wrote. I asked him once. We were sitting outside a motel. I was 15. He had disappeared for a year and came back like nothing happened. I asked him why he left. He said, because I thought you were better off without me. I wanted to believe it was guilt or fear or maybe even love. But now I think he just said it because it was an easy lie he could live with. And yes, I wondered for a long time if I had done something wrong. If I wasn't good enough to make him stay. But I realized it wasn't about me. Or Kim. Or you. It was about him. He ran from everyone, and we all got hurt in different ways. He folded the letter and added a second page. On it, just one quote. Children don't stop loving the parent who hurts them. They stop loving themselves. 3 days later, Jaden wrote another letter. That sentence really hit me hard, he said. I used to think I had no scars, just bad luck. But now I see most of the damage in my life didn't come from what I did. It came from what I believed about myself. I've started writing in a journal again. First time in years. The pages are messy, but they're mine. Keanu smiled when he read that. The line, "They're mine," stayed in his heart. He wrote back the next night. I think our stories are different, but the feeling inside is the same. We both learned how to stay quiet and survive. Maybe it's time we learn how to speak up and really live. This time he added a small photo, not of himself, but of a drawing his sister Kim made when she was sick. It showed one tree growing on a cliff. The roots held tightly to the rocks. The wind was blowing the branches, but the tree was still standing. On the back of the drawing he wrote, "We don't get to choose the ground we grow in, but we can still choose to grow toward the light." The letters kept coming. What started as careful messages became real talks, honest, messy, and full of heart. Jaden's handwriting got steadier. His words were softer and deeper. He asked Keanu, "Was Kim the one who helped you stay strong?" Keanu answered right away, "Yes. She taught me how to stay kind in a world that's hard. Even when she was sick, she smiled and made jokes. She made me believe there's power in choosing love, even when life gives you reasons not to." That letter had a quote from Kim's journal. Some people wait to be saved. Others learn how to save themselves and then help others. Jaden replied with a drawing, just pencil lines. It showed two people climbing a hill. One was ahead, reaching back with an open hand. Under it, Jaden wrote, "I'm not sure I'm there yet, but I'm climbing." Keanu kept the picture on his desk. He looked at it often, not just as art, but as a sign. This man, his brother, was starting to see himself in a new way. They talked about books and movies again. They shared thoughts about music, grief, and how time can hurt and heal. They talked about what redemption means, how people can be forgiven and if they need to earn it or just choose it. Finally, Jaden wrote, "We went through different storms, but we're both still standing. That has to mean something, right?" Keanu read that line 2 times. Then 3. He didn't write back right away. Because in that moment he knew something. They weren't just strangers writing letters anymore. They were brothers. Not just by blood, but by choice, by truth, by the bridge they built, one letter at a time. Then an email came from a woman named Joan Lang, late on a Wednesday. The subject was, "New California Sentencing Review Bill, Jaden Reeves." Keanu opened it, feeling careful hope. He was used to bad news, but this felt different. Joan had been watching new laws that might help Jaden. Now, something real had happened. A new law passed in California. It said that people in prison who weren't violent and who showed they had changed could ask to get out early, with help and rules. Jaden fit all the rules. Keanu sat back and read the email twice. There were no promises, no easy path. But there was now a door, and it was open just a little. Keanu didn't want to push Jaden. So he wrote to him, not with pressure but with a small spark of hope. There's a new law in California. If someone has truly changed, not just said it but lived it, they might get released early. You meet the rules. I'd like to help quietly if you want. A week later, Jaden wrote back. His note was short but careful. "I'm not looking for a shortcut," he said. "I don't want pity. I don't need to be saved. But I'm tired of being forgotten. If this is real, yeah, let's try." Keanu brought in a really good legal team. But he told them one rule. No media. No spotlight. This is not about me. It's about who Jaden is now. In the next weeks, the team got busy gathering papers and support. Jaden went to every class and workshop in the prison. He helped other prisoners learn for their GED tests. He joined a group to talk about healing from past hurts. He even helped others write letters to their families. He never asked Keanu for anything more. But Keanu watched from far away, thinking, "I'm not here to carry you. I'm just here to walk beside you." Jaden worked with quiet strength. Even the prison staff was surprised. He didn't brag. He didn't tell others. He just showed up early, listened, and tried his best. When they asked about his past, he didn't make excuses. "I did what I did," he told the counselor. "I wasn't innocent. But I'm not the same man anymore. I just want a chance to live the rest of my life in the light." He wrote letters of apology, to the store clerk who saw the robbery, to the last foster mom who tried to help him, and to Elaine, the kind social worker who first helped the two brothers talk. Keanu kept his promise to stay behind the scenes. He helped the team, read reports, and gave advice, but always with one rule. Jaden leads. If Jaden needed time, they waited. If Jaden wanted to change a letter, they did. If Jaden didn't know what to say, Keanu reminded him, just tell your truth. That's all anyone can ask. It took 3 months to get everything ready. During that time, Jaden changed more. He didn't walk like someone always waiting for bad news anymore. He stood straighter. He spoke with more strength. His letters didn't sound like a man stuck in prison. They sounded like someone who had something important to say. Even the prison boss noticed. He wrote a letter saying Jaden had become a leader in a hard place, that he helped stop fights, encouraged others to learn, and gave hope. He ended the letter with, I believe he deserves a second chance. Keanu read that line and let out a deep breath. Now it wasn't just hope, it was moving forward. The last step was a special meeting with the California Sentencing Review Board. Keanu asked Jaden, do you want me to come? As your family? Jaden paused, then said, yeah, I think I'd like that. Keanu nodded. Then I'll be there. The courtroom was small. No fancy floors or big chairs. Just a simple room with hard benches and buzzing lights. Keanu came in through a side door. He wore jeans, a blue jacket, and a baseball cap pulled low. No cameras. No group of fans. Just a man keeping his promise, to show up. He sat in the back, hands resting in his lap, watching. The room was half full. A few lawyers, prison staff, and some families. Then the door opened. Jaden walked in. He wore a simple suit, a little wrinkled but clean. He looked taller, not because he had grown but because he stood proud now. He looked around the room and saw Keanu. He didn't smile. He didn't wave. But his eyes said everything. He knew Keanu was there. He knew he wasn't alone. The judge came in. She was a woman in her 50s, with tired eyes but a kind voice. She read about Jaden's case, his time in prison, and all the letters and reports. When she read the prison boss's letter, her voice slowed. Mr. Reeves has become a strong presence. He helps others. I believe he is ready to return to the world, with help and care. Then she looked up. Mr. Reeves, you may speak. Jaden stood. His hands shook a little. He opened his paper but didn't look at it. He spoke from his heart. I used to think prison was the punishment, he said. But prison didn't start when I got locked up. It started way before that. I was broken before I even knew what it meant to be whole. I was passed around, left behind. I thought being tough was the only way to stay alive. And for a long time, I lived like someone the world had already given up on. He looked forward, eyes focused. But then someone came into my life who didn't treat me like garbage. He didn't try to save me. He didn't feel sorry for me. He just stayed. The judge leaned forward. I know I did wrong. I know I hurt people. I can't erase that. I'm not asking for mercy. I'm just asking for the chance to keep becoming the person I was never allowed to be. He stepped back. The room was quiet. The judge looked at her papers. Then at Jaden. She said, I've read every word in your file. I've seen many cases like yours. But very few show the kind of work you've done. Not just to stay out of trouble, but to help others too. This isn't about who sits in the back row. This is about you. She paused. Then said softly, supervised release is granted. No one clapped. No one shouted. The room stayed quiet, full of feeling. Jaden closed his eyes. Keanu sat still in the back. A single tear rolled down, but he didn't wipe it away. 30 minutes later, outside the courthouse, Keanu waited by his car. Jaden walked out, not full of pride or shock. Just calm and real. Free. For the first time in so many years, he was free. They looked at each other. No words. But when Jaden walked closer and Keanu opened his arms, it wasn't like strangers hugging. It was two people, once broken, now choosing to heal. Together. Jaden finally looked at Keanu and said, feels like too much. It's just space. Keanu answered, quiet, clean, yours for as long as you need it. Jaden didn't say anything else. He picked up his bag and walked up the steps. Inside the guest house, it was simple but felt warm. The floors were wood with old rugs on them. There was a bookshelf full of books and a kitchen with a counter that had chipped tiles. It smelled faintly of lemon. It didn't look fancy, but it felt like someone had taken care of it without trying to impress anyone. Jaden chose the smaller bedroom without asking anyone. He unpacked his bag slowly. He had 2 changes of clothes, a pair of boots, his journal, a toothbrush, and a sketch Keanu had framed for him. The sketch was of 2 people climbing the same hill, and Jaden had drawn it. He placed the picture on the nightstand and just stared at it for a long time. That evening, Keanu made pasta. It wasn't anything special, but it was good. They sat at a small table near the window as the sun went down. They didn't talk much, but the silence felt different now. It was calm, not awkward. After dinner, Keanu cleared his throat and said, "There are a few house rules. No guests without asking, no press, no filming or interviews, keep the place clean, and if you need something, ask. But don't expect me to fix everything." Jaden nodded. "Fair enough." Keanu looked at him for a moment and then said, "And Jaden, this isn't about you proving anything to me." Jaden looked confused and asked, "Then what is it about?" Keanu's voice was soft when he replied, "It's about giving you a chance to live without just trying to survive." Jaden didn't say anything, but when he stepped outside later that night, he stood barefoot on the back deck. The moon was shining and he felt something he hadn't felt in a long time. It was peace and maybe even the start of feeling at home. The next morning, Jaden woke up early, not because of a routine, but because of a strange energy that wouldn't let him sleep. The air from the ocean was fresh, cleaner than anything he had breathed in years. He stood outside with a cup of black coffee, watching the waves roll in. It was like they had their own story to tell. Later that day, Keanu drove him to the docks. "I have a friend who owns a boat repair shop here," Keanu said. "They always need help. No pressure, but it's a good way to meet people who don't care who I am or who you are." Jaden didn't say much, but he agreed to go. The shop owner, an older man named Ree, had sunburned arms and hands that looked tough. He barely looked at Jaden when they met. He asked if Jaden could lift 60 pounds, use a pressure washer, and show up on time. Jaden nodded. "Great," Ree said. "Wear clothes you don't mind getting dirty. Start on Monday." That was it. No questions about Jaden's past, no checks. Just trust, simple and quiet. Jaden worked 3 days a week, scrubbing barnacles off boats, power washing decks, and cleaning out fish guts from old boats. It wasn't glamorous, but it was real, honest work that made his hands sore and his back tired in the best way. In the evenings, he came home to the guest house, took a shower, and read or wrote in a notebook Keanu had bought for him. On the cover, Jaden had written 5 words in big black letters, "Roof, I'm still here." Inside the notebook, there were scattered thoughts, short notes, sometimes just a few words. "Tried lemon tea today. Not terrible. Dreamed about my mom last night. Didn't flinch when that guy at work yelled. No one told me I mattered, but I'm starting to believe it anyway." On Thursdays, Jaden took a bus to the nearby town for counseling. He paid for it himself, even though Keanu offered to cover it. "If I don't invest in myself, no one else will," Jaden said. He also joined a men's recovery group at the local church. At first, he sat quietly at the back, but after 3 weeks, he started to share. Just a little. Just enough. Keanu never asked for updates. He never checked to see how Jaden was doing. He just made sure the fridge was full and left a plate of dinner covered with foil outside Jaden's door on nights when he worked late. The silence between them wasn't empty anymore. It was trust. One evening, Keanu brought up the idea of a youth program. He didn't push Jaden. "Just an idea," he said. "Nothing serious." Jaden's first thought was to say no right away. "Nah," he said, shaking his head. "I'm not the guy you put in front of kids." Keanu didn't argue. He just nodded and moved on to talk about a new book he was reading. But later, after dinner, Jaden found himself thinking about it. Not because he felt forced, but because something inside him was changing. That night, Jaden sat at the kitchen table long after the lights went out in the main house. The ocean's sound was calming, but his mind wasn't still. He opened his journal and wrote just one line, "What if my story could help someone else survive theirs?" He didn't write anything more, but he left the notebook open on the counter, like even the page needed to breathe. The next few days were normal. Work at the docks, meetings at the church, quiet dinners, and simple routines. But inside Jaden, something had started to change. One evening, as Keanu was filling the kettle with water, Jaden spoke up. "That youth program you mentioned," he said. Keanu looked at him. "I'm not a speaker. I don't do stages, but if they want someone who's been through it, someone who doesn't sugarcoat it, maybe I could talk." Keanu didn't smile right away, but he didn't say no either. "Only if it feels right," he said. Jaden shrugged. "It doesn't yet, but it might." They left it at that. Later, Jaden stood on the back deck, hands resting on the railing, staring out into the dark waves. He was still healing, still growing, still learning how to live in a world that had once hurt him. But for the first time in years, the future didn't feel like a punishment. It felt like a path, and he was walking it on his own feet. It all started with a name he hadn't said in many years, Lillian Howard. She wasn't family by blood, but she was the closest thing to safety he'd known when he was a child. When Jaden told Keanu he wanted to visit her grave, there was no speech, no questions. Keanu just offered to drive him there and wait nearby. Keanu sat on a bench under a eucalyptus tree at the edge of the cemetery while Jaden walked to the grave alone. The headstone was simple, weathered, and a little tilted. It said, Lillian Howard 1949 to 1997. She tried. She cared. Jaden stood there for a long time, not moving, just breathing. He remembered the times Lillian held his hand when he had nightmares, how she folded his clothes, and how she gave him a small blue Bible when the social worker said he had to leave. Jaden had run away like he always did, but Lillian had loved him anyway. He knelt down and touched the stone with his fingers. I should have stayed, he whispered. I was scared and didn't know how to be wanted. But you were the only one who really saw me. He didn't cry. He just stayed there in silence, thinking about all the things Lillian had done for him. After a while, he stood up, and when he went back to the guest house that night, he didn't say much. Keanu was in the kitchen making tea, and Jaden just walked past him and said, "Thank you for today." That's when the letters started. Not journal entries, but letters to the people Jaden had hurt. There were more than he expected. An old girlfriend named Yasmin, a foster brother named Curtis, a teacher who tried to help him, and even the man from the corner store who Jaden had robbed. He wrote slowly, carefully, each word feeling heavy but honest. He didn't ask for forgiveness. He just told the truth. The hardest letter was the one to Air Patel, the store owner Jaden had held at gunpoint 22 years ago. Jaden didn't expect a reply, but he mailed it anyway with just one note at the end. If you don't remember me, that's fine. If you do and don't want to respond, I understand. But I need you to know I was wrong and I'm sorry. 2 weeks later, a letter came from San Diego. Jaden opened it slowly, heart pounding. It was written neatly in blue ink. I remember you. I was angry for a long time, not just at you but at the world. I forgive you. Not because you asked, but because I decided to stop caring what you left behind. Be better than who you were. Jaden read the letter 5 times. He folded it carefully and put it in his notebook, then wrote at the top of the page, "Wait. I didn't know what I was holding." That night, Keanu grilled salmon outside while the sun went down. They ate together on the deck, watching the sky turn gold. After dinner, Jaden leaned back in his chair and asked, "Do you ever wonder if the version of us we dream of still lives inside?" Keanu looked at him and said, "I think he's waiting. Just waiting to be invited back in." Jaden didn't reply, but he nodded slowly, thinking. That version of himself, the one before the anger, the lies, and the walls, hadn't been erased. He had just been buried. Now maybe he was starting to rise. In the weeks that followed, Jaden kept healing. He kept writing, not just in his notebook, but to others. More letters, more bridges reaching out. Some were sent, some weren't, but each one made him feel lighter. He and Keanu went on more hikes along the cliffside, sometimes talking, sometimes walking in silence. The silence didn't feel lonely. It was like they didn't have to speak to understand each other. They cooked together, laughing at the mess they made. Keanu played jazz music in the background, and Jaden started to enjoy tasks for the sake of calming his mind. One morning, Jaden found a letter slipped under his door from Keanu. It said, "You've done more than anyone ever expected you to do. Not because you had to, but because you chose to. That matters even if no one else sees it. I do." Jaden didn't say anything. He just folded the letter and taped it inside his journal. Later that night, while looking at the stars, he whispered, "I forgive you, Dad." No one heard, but it didn't matter because the boy who had once believed he was unlovable and broken had finally seen someone worth saving. Then an email arrived for Jaden, not Keanu. It was from a local youth center asking if he would speak to a group of kids. They wanted him to talk about his life, how he made it through, and what he would say to his younger self. Jaden stared at the email for a long time. He didn't answer right away. That night he showed Keanu the email. "They want me to talk," Jaden said. Keanu read the message and then asked, "How do you feel about it?" "Terrified," Jaden said. Keanu smiled. "Good. That means it matters." Jaden exhaled. "I'm not a speaker." Keanu shook his head. "No, you're a survivor. Just tell them what it took to stay alive." And for the first time, Jaden thought maybe he could. For the next few days, Jaden thought a lot about what he was going to do. He wrote notes, erased them, and wrote new ones. He imagined himself standing in front of a room full of teenagers, scared they would think he wasn't good enough. But something inside him kept saying, "Don't run away this time." The night before the event, Jaden couldn't sleep. He walked back and forth in the small living room of the guest house. He read every sentence out loud, not liking how fake they sounded. Finally, around 2 a.m., he crumpled the paper and threw it in the trash. He went to the kitchen window and looked outside at the dark sky and the waves moving like a heartbeat under the moon. In the quiet, he whispered, "Just tell the truth. And for the first time it felt right. The community center was full. There were rows of chairs in a big room, most of them filled with teens, some with their mentors and a few with tired-looking parents. The air was buzzing with low voices, the sound of sneakers on the floor, and a ringtone that someone forgot to turn off. On a small stage there was a wooden podium, one light above it flickering, and a microphone with a crack in it. Jaden stood backstage, his heart beating fast in his chest. His hands were sweaty and his throat felt dry. Keanu stood next to him, not saying much, just there with him. Jaden kept looking at the door. Keanu noticed and said, "You don't have to be perfect. Just be real." Jaden nodded a little. Keanu added, "Say the words only you can say." The host walked up to introduce Jaden. The crowd clapped, not too loudly but in a way that felt real. Jaden stepped onto the stage. He could feel everyone's eyes on him. His hands tingle. He didn't carry any notes, just his breath and the truth. He held onto the podium and looked out at the crowd. He saw kids with tired eyes and crossed arms trying to act tough. He knew them because he had been like them. He leaned toward the microphone and said, "I wasn't born bad." The room got very quiet. "I was born invisible." In the back, someone's phone buzzed and was quickly turned off. Jaden continued, "I don't know what you've heard about people like me. I don't know what you think about someone who's been locked up, but I'm not here to try to make you think I'm special." He looked at everyone in the room. "I'm here to tell you that people don't wake up and decide to ruin their lives. They survive the only way they know how." Some heads nodded. Jaden took a deep breath. Sometimes all it takes to start changing is for someone to look at you like you're worth saving. The room stayed silent. No one moved. Not even the kids who had come in with their hoods up and arms crossed. Everyone was watching him now, not with doubt, but with quiet attention. He cleared his throat and said, "For most of my life, I thought I didn't matter. I hurt people because I thought that was what people like me were supposed to do." He paused. "But someone came into my life who didn't try to fix me. He just stayed. He listened. And when someone sees you, you start to see yourself." Jaden's voice wavered a little, but he didn't stop. "I used to think I was too far gone, but you know what I learned? You're never too far gone to come home to yourself." He stepped back from the microphone. The room suddenly filled with loud clapping. People stood up, clapped, and cheered. Even the kids who had looked so serious were smiling. Jaden wiped his eyes with his sleeve. He looked at the back of the room where Keanu was sitting. Keanu didn't say anything or make any noise. He just nodded at Jaden. They didn't need words. It was a quiet moment between two brothers who had been through a lot and found each other. Jaden had written the letter in 3 weeks. He didn't tell Keanu about it at first. It wasn't something he wanted help with. It was something he needed to do by himself. He wrote questions, then accusations, and then a confession. Eventually, it became something different, not a plea but a moment of truth. He filled 6 pages with his thoughts. When he finished, he folded the letter carefully and put it in a plain envelope. He didn't write Dad or Father on it. He just wrote Thomas Reeves. Jaden didn't know if Keanu would understand what he was about to do. But when he went into the kitchen, Keanu was there, chopping vegetables. "I wrote something," Jaden said. Keanu looked up. "A letter to him?" Keanu asked. Jaden nodded. "You want to read it?" Keanu asked. "Not here," Jaden replied. "Can we go down to the beach?" They walked down to the beach in silence, listening to the waves. The sun was starting to set, making the sky look orange. They stopped at a small beach, half hidden by sand and driftwood. Keanu knelt down and started to build a small fire. The flames crackled as Jaden sat on a flat rock and opened the letter. He started to read aloud. "You don't get to explain anything now," he read. "You don't get the last word, but I'm still going to speak mine because I've carried this for too long. You broke us before we had a chance. You left her. You left me. Then you went and made another family and gave them the same pain. That's who you were. But I'm not living in your shadow anymore." Jaden paused and looked at the fire, feeling the warmth. "You taught me how to disappear, how to be empty. I became a ghost a long time before I went to prison. And you were the reason. But here's what you didn't expect. I'm still here. Not because of you, but in spite of you." Keanu was quiet. Jaden continued reading, his voice getting softer. "I forgive you. Not because you deserve it, but because I refuse to carry your damage anymore. I'm not a broken part of you. I'm building something new. Something real. Goodbye, Thomas." Jaden folded the letter and held it over the fire. The flames caught the paper and it turned to ash. Keanu took out something from his pocket. It was a small wooden falcon made by his dad when Keanu was a kid. Keanu looked at it for a moment before throwing it into the fire. They watched the wood burn together quietly. After the fire went out, Jaden said, "He made a mess of us." Keanu nodded. "Yeah, but I'm not living in his shadow anymore." Keanu looked at Jaden and said, "Neither am I." They sat there for a while watching the smoke rise into the sky. It felt like the past was finally letting go. It wasn't the end, it was a new beginning. The auditorium was full again, but this time it was even more crowded. People had traveled from all over the county. The room was full of energy. Jaden stood backstage alone, dressed in a charcoal blazer and clean jeans. He didn't need a note card. The words were already inside him. He stepped out onto the stage. The room became silent. "I used to think surviving was enough," Jaden began. "But now I know that just surviving isn't the same as really living." His voice echoed in the room, but it was strong. "I know what it feels like to be invisible, to feel like no one sees you. And when you think that long enough, you start acting like it." He paused. "I didn't need someone to save me. I needed someone to believe I was more than my worst mistake." The audience was silent. Jaden continued, "We talk a lot about people turning their lives around, but the truth is, most of us don't need a miracle. We just need a chance. A moment when someone says, 'I see you and I'm not afraid of your past.'" Some people in the crowd nodded. Others leaned forward. "I spent years carrying shame that wasn't mine. I thought that because of what happened to me, I didn't deserve love. But I was wrong." Jaden let the words settle in. Every person here has the power to help someone by just standing with them. You don't need to be perfect. You just have to be there. The crowd erupted into applause, clapping, cheering, and stomping their feet. Some people even wiped their eyes. Jaden looked out at the crowd again and found Keanu, still sitting in the back, smiling at him. Jaden smiled back. No need for words, just a quiet moment of understanding. After the speech, people came up to thank Jaden. A student whispered, "You just told my story." Jaden nodded and walked off the stage, the sound of applause following him. Outside, the sun was setting. Keanu stood by a car waiting. Jaden walked over to him, calm and steady. Keanu asked, "How did it feel?" Jaden looked at the sky, then at his brother. "Like I didn't leave any of myself behind." Keanu smiled. "You didn't." They got into the car together, leaving the building behind as the kids walked out, still talking about the speech. For the first time, Jaden wasn't looking for redemption. He was already living in it, and he wasn't walking alone. If you like this story, I'd love to hear your thoughts. Leave a comment below and let me know what you think. And don't forget to subscribe for more thrilling adventures, mysteries, and unforgettable moments. Your support keeps these stories alive and the creativity flowing. Thanks for watching. I can't wait to see you in the next video.